as described here, basically one scenario is a low-tech, weak authentication scenario, and that's actually pretty typical of the way most people work now. Somebody walks in as a new customer, they present a paper document or a physical document of some kind. The authentication is relatively weak. The technology is relatively low. All the way to the fourth scenario, which is a high-tech scenario where the person may not even be physically present when they're opening the new account. It may be a virtual person doing it online, and the document may be a digital document. So high-tech and strong authentication in the sense that the methodology for issuing the document is considered tamper-proof. There's no such thing as tamper-proof, but close to tamper-proof. So the authentication methodology is strong. I'll go into more detail about that. The point is that in scenario one, you will see that the first three: date of birth, full name, date of expiry, signature, photo, and all of those there was a fairly high level of consensus among the experts that those were very, very important attributes. The green color indicates a 90% consensus among the experts. The yellow indicates an 85% or more consensus. And one of the things that's interesting and that adds some validity to this is that the high consensus attributes are also, in general, the highest rated importance in the scenario. In general, that's not 100% true. Then the synthesis, which I found very interesting, is that across all scenarios, the date of birth, the date of expiry, and the date issued, the dates, for some reason, across all scenarios, those were consistently rated at 85%. The consensus level was 85% or more across all scenarios for those three. Okay. So anyway, that's just kind of that's the punchline, yes?
Can you explain what are the numbers that you get?
Sorry. The numbers are, I asked each expert to rate the importance of each characteristic on a scale of 1 to 5. So the average, for instance, on S1, the first number 4.8, the date of birth, the average rating of date of birth in scenario 1 was 4.8 across the 38 experts.
Okay. And what are these numbers?
The ones on the right?
On the left hand side.
Oh, sorry, that's just the order of the 21 different characteristics.
Okay.
Yeah, that's just the order that they were listed in.
It's not an order,
It's just a number 1 to 21. It's just a number.
Just the second number.
Yes, it's just an item number. It's nominal. It has no meaning as far as the rating is concerned. It was just a way to kind of keep track of what they're doing, some way of identifying it easily. Okay, let me give you a little background here. This is something that came through in a number of the items that I read through. I call it the ABCs of identity fraud. It wasn't actually called this in the document, but this to me seemed to make the most sense in just understanding what it is. The A is the acquisition, and this is the process where the thieves, the perpetrators, and the identity thieves acquire data somehow. And the minimal data set, just as a matter of interest, is generally speaking the consumer name, date of birth, and social security number. If you get those three pieces of information about a person, you're well on the way to having stolen their identity. Okay. The B step is breeding. Having acquired the data about the person, you can use that acquired identity data set actually now to breed, to create other documents. So, for instance, I may go dumpster diving and find that one of the, it's a very topical thing actually, and it has actually happened. The ticker tape parade in New York after the Super Bowl, the people who were cleaning up actually found unshredded information from legal offices, banks, on the ground with customer names, identity, social security. This is true, I'm not making this up. This was actually floating around on the streets of New York. Worse, some of the legal documents even had things like child support information, sealed documents, legally sealed documents were floating around New York. So anyway, the breeding, having acquired the data to begin with, now you can use that data to breed, to create a new identity document. So I may get the name, social security number, and date of birth, and I take that stolen information, I'm going to pick on David. I take that stolen information that represents David, and now I go to a bank and say, here's my information, I'm David, I'd like to open a new account, here's the information, and they give me a credit card probably or something like that. I can take this information now and go somewhere else, and perhaps I now have enough. Like when I say, I've lost my driver's license, but here's my information. Can you issue me a new driver's license, please? And I get a new driver's license. So I'm taking this stolen data and breeding new documents, which, by the way, adds to the credibility of the document that I've stolen, because now I have multiple documents that all say I'm David. The conversion step, having acquired these multiple data sets, and having now done the breeding and created the new document, now I can convert this for financial gain of some kind. As I mentioned, I've actually improved the credibility of the fraudulent documents. So now, based on the strength of a good driver's license, bank account, I go into a mortgage company and I say I'd like to borrow $300,000 to buy a piece of property. Fine, so I get the loan and now I acquire the property. Now if I disappear, I have the property, maybe they could get that back, but I certainly have the loan money. Okay? So that's the conversion process, that's the ABC, that's kind of the background of how identity fraud works. Okay? The context that I'm talking
clarify,
yes,
you can see where is your research going to make it?
My research is actually going to make a difference in the methodology of preventing the breeding. Because I'm going to look at the credibility of those identity documents at the time the new account is being opened, which is when the breeding will take place. The context, as I've been sort of referring to all the way through here, is new account fraud. And the reason I selected new account fraud in the banking arena is that this is typically the highest risk time for a bank. Because a new customer is walking in and the bank has no way of knowing anything yet about that customer. So they don't really have any basis for knowing that the customer is honest and credible and so on. The only thing they can use at that early stage is the documents that they're looking at. So that's the high risk time. That's why I focused my research in that area. And as I've talked about, data acquired fraudulently is used for breeding, create the fraudulent IDs, which can then be presented to other organizations as evidence of identity. And that can also be used for conversion. The reason I selected that new account fraud tool is not only is it high risk, it's also much more time consuming and costly to repair than just the fraudulent use of existing accounts. Right, that's something that comes through very clearly in the identity theft literature. So, the research questions that I had, I mentioned were, first of all, what attributes do experts look for in identity documents when judging their credibility? And describe, the reason for that question is that if you can describe the attributes of credible identity documents, that will allow us to have a better understanding of what the indicators are that suggest the potential for identity fraud. And it's those indicators that should be the focus in developing solutions for the identity fraud problem. So that's the reason for having that question. The second question is, having specified those attributes now, we need to understand how the experts rate their relative importance. That can be very helpful because you could actually use that as a tool for selecting the most useful identity document. Consider a document, consider what of these attributes it has,